Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and once again, I'm speaking and glad to be speaking with Susan Dugan, who is a fellow Course in Miracles student, a teacher aficionado, and enthusiast extraordinaire. How's that? For a slightly different introduction than the usual.
But I like it.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Today, we thought we'd talk about the greater joining, which is the fourth section in the text in chapter, let me scroll back up there. Was it 26, was it? Yeah, 28. And as so many other parts of Course in Miracles, this is packed with great insights, and we thought we'd just dive in and talk about the greater joining. Before we do, though, Susan, do you have anything you want to announce or any updates?
Just I guess that the Foundation for A Course in Miracles is, they've been doing seminars. Jeffrey Siebert, the longtime teacher and staff member, who's wonderful, has been giving seminars for a while now. I'm not sure how long. This has been a kind of crazy year for me with moving and a lot of things going on personally, but and so you were able to get recorded versions of that from their streaming section of their website, but now it will be live streamed too. So people, if they want to actually have the feeling of being right there, they can take advantage of that, and then still also review it afterwards for a couple of weeks, I think. So, so check that out. And they're also, full day seminars now. So,
Great.
it sounds like some great topics coming up. I'm trying to get caught up in the last couple of months of the podcasts that I haven't been able to had time to listen to, but. So highly recommend that.
Yes, I would concur with that completely. I've listened to several months worth of the free podcasts that are on the facim.org website, and which you can get to.
Right, it's a lot of free.
You can get to the store, which has the streaming content there, including the ones you're talking about that are upcoming. So yeah.
And there's all kinds of sales too.
Yes.
On CDs and on past seminars that have been given over the years, and a lot of Ken's work. So, really good discounts, like 25% and that sort of thing. So check it out.
Yeah. Lots of wonderful material there. Also, I was going to mention that the sister organization, the Foundation for Inner Peace in Northern California, is having a webinar tomorrow, and you can go to acim.org/events, and if you're not already subscribing to that announcement email, you can get on that list and participate either live or watch the recordings afterwards. And the topic coming up for tomorrow is on kind of a mix of Halloween and Thanksgiving. It's going to be about masks and gratitude. So I'm eager and curious to see what Dr. Bob Rosenthal is going to cover tomorrow. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So again, the two sister organizations, Foundation for A Course in Miracles, the teaching arm traditionally has been that, and that's facim.org, and then the original publisher, Foundation for Inner Peace, as ACIM.org. So it's just facim.org and ACIM.org. Pretty easy to remember. So, well, anyway, with that, those announcements out of the way, shall we dive into the greater joining?
Greater joining, sure. Well, and maybe I'll introduce the topic a little bit. The reason I wanted to do this particular section is we've been going through the text in my Tuesday night class that I've been doing for a very long time. For quite some time, we've been going through the text, and so we were on chapter 28. We now just started 30, but this section really struck me back, a month or two ago when we read it, and then also I had just been really thinking a lot. I kind of went back to it, and it was probably a few months ago that I had first read it, and I found myself drawn back to it. And I think it was because I really was experiencing this whole year in my own practice a different experience of joining, or maybe just a deeper experience. The Course works. I mean, we're practicing this hopefully as much as we can to the best of our ability all the time. And as we know, the work of this particular spiritual path is really through our relationships. That seems to be, even though that there really isn't anybody out there metaphysically ultimately, on the level that we think we're in, we certainly seem to be in relationships, and it's that awareness of the pain of those relationships, or the for me, that sense that the way I'm really, that there was something not genuine about my relationships, which first, I think, brought me to the Course, that sense of feeling unloved and unloving and not truly understanding what was going on. And so I really began to, this past year, have a different experience of recognizing in my special relationships, and a couple of them, but one in particular that brought me back to this section, that we even as Course students, when we're really recognizing that we're really not joining with other bodies, and the Course says that, but it also tells us that we start there. We start by, it's always telling us to join with others. And that's such a misunderstood concept. And I think that for me, I realized that part of what I was still doing in my special relationships was wanting to kind of have my course and and my way too, and still wanting in some way for the other person to change, or to meet my needs better, or to not cause me so many problems, or to, all of the stories that we tell ourselves about the problem being in someone else. And so, I was struggling again with really being unable to sort of let go of the idea that, I could be peaceful if it wasn't for, and then, whatever my grievance of the moment was. And so, that seemed to be as these problems seem to be coming as a result of this other person in my life. And so, I really kind of had some sort of aha moment where I just realized, that it was almost like Jesus kind of being there in my mind, in the sense of saying, kind of smiling. And I realized that I was just, that it was ridiculous what I was really trying to do, and that it was never going to work. It's never going to work. And it isn't that I hadn't come to that recognition before, but, this is a deepening of a practice that we do over, for most of us, it's an undoing, and we're resistant to it. So I had a much more clearer experience that it was really being in that mind with that smiling Jesus, that's really what my only need. And as soon as I have that, when I'm willing to do that, then really when the Course says that our relationships become holy, well, they, not wholly by my terms, not wholly in terms of meeting my needs as a body, as a individual, but I do see that same, it just shifts my whole awareness of the other person into an awareness of more, as Ken used to talk about, of our sameness, and really seeing that we're both doing the same thing here. In this case, we're really, really different people. We're never going to be the same in form. That's just, that's just like not going to ever happen. But then why does it matter so much, And so it really doesn't. And so again, I'm using it to keep the idea of separation going. I'm using it to keep the idea of a victimized me going. And it's just silly, and it's not serving me. And so, I'm making this sound more intellectual than it actually was, but I don't know how else to express it. So,
well, I think you're expressing it very well.
Yeah.
It's the form can be very different, of course, as we know, but the strategy in the mind of the ego's, maladaptive solution to the non-existent problem is,
right.
like to say, it's the same, isn't it?
Regurgitating the same reasons why you can't be happy, or why this can't work, or why, it's so much trouble, and you can't be at peace, and so I've just had a way more of a shift of what that joining really means, joining in the mind. It's never ever even a little bit about joining with the other person in as a body, as a personal self, as these masks,
Right.
that these costumes that we wear that seem so important to us and so individuated and all and so unique and so
Specialized even.
yeah, specialized. And whatever your story is about how you are, we often we find ourselves talking, explaining and rationalizing to other people, well, I'm like this is, I've always been like this, or I've whatever it is. Everybody does that, and those are our defenses. That's our those are the walls we build as bodies. The workbook talks about that. The body is a fence that we made to fence out love, to keep keep us away from the mind, keep us away from the love that we're now afraid of and think that we deserve punishment from. And it's it's a fortification that is so maladaptive, as Ken said, and it just doesn't work. And so I guess I felt that crumbling a little bit more, and it felt good.
Yeah.
Because the joining is, the need of every heart that the Course talks about is the need to join with that love in the mind. And as we practice forgiveness, the more, as we try to practice this throughout our day as consistently as we can, despite our resistance, over time, more and more, we just sort of, that the wall starts to crumble. And even I could see through the cracks in the wall that it was ridiculous, that I'm wrong, that it's just another frightened fragment of the decision-making mind that's wearing this costume that is really just trying to find their way home, just like me. Yep. And has the same power of the mind to do it, has the same ego, and when they've chosen the ego, just hankers in and hankers down and is invested in their own interests and what they, dreaming their own dream, believing that somehow the dream is dreaming them, just like me, but still has the same decision-making mind that can, that is in touch with, at some level, however distant it may seem, that memory of our wholeness, that presence, loving presence in our mind that the Course calls Jesus or Holy Spirit. And that's there for all of us. And however long we take to find it doesn't matter. It's, that is, that's another illusion of the egos, that the time matters. But that the kind use of time is to try to be willing to learn that and to let my defensiveness go, and to begin to look at my needs, what the needs that as I framed them with Jesus, and really begin to see that, they're really not dependent at all on this special relationship, what it does or does not do, and so anyway, I think that's what led me back to this idea of this section called the greater joining, because the way we join with others is to join with Jesus in our mind. There is no and when we're joining, we're always joining with one or two teachers in the mind. And when we're joining with the ego in the mind, then all of our relationships are special relationships, and they're fraught with need, and they're fraught with conflict, and they're fraught with sacrifice and betrayal, and all the things, victimization, and all of the things all the games we play, all the costumes we wear, and all the dramas we act out, but they can't be other than that, because that's the way we set it up. So when we're choosing the ego as our teacher, that's really the opposite of joining. Trying to join with the body is a substitute for believing that we're no longer joined with God, and that's a lie. So
it's a pretty pervasive and popular substitute, but it is a substitute, right. Isn't it? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's really a second best at best kind of a thing, but we don't see that, I think, until we typically have tried enough permutations on the false alternative, and trying to make the world work, and trying to join and put things together in the world, whether it's with people or with circumstances or events. But we're always trying to adjust or manipulate or cajole the world of space-time to meet our needs as we perceive them as egos. And the more we kind of look at objectively at that, it's like, that's not working out very well.
Right.
I think that I first heard the phrase from you that that I've enjoyed for years now. How's that working out for you? You can
Well, I
kind of
always
imagine
imagine Jesus saying that to us.
exactly our inner Jesus
Yeah.
asking that, just sort of like with a little whimsical smirk, and not in any kind of mean-spirited way, but just kind of like, let's give an honest assessment of how's that joining that you're trying to do on a level of form really, what's its real track record.
Right. And we're all doing it,
Yeah.
we're doing it not consciously,
Right.
but the more we practice this and pay attention to it, it becomes a lot more. I mean, really, we're making it much more conscious.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
when it get, that's when we get busted. That's when we
Yeah.
see that, it's, I mean, I can't really pretend anymore.
Right.
That I'm not complicit in this, right?
Exactly. And I think it's important to note, just so people don't get blindsided, and this is, I think, an ongoing process, is once we start recognizing from this, by aligning ourselves with the Holy Spirit, or a symbol like Jesus, which is a great one, because if we read the Course and recognize the spirit that is being presented, and through that material, is really that awareness we took with us into the dream. That understanding really then guides us to look at the shenanigans of our egos in a really gentle, patient way,
without judgment.
Without judgment, exactly, without any kind of condemnation, and just say. But then but we could get blindsided if we don't, anticipate seeing the depth and the breadth of that, because it's so pervasive.
It's horrifying.
It can be really completely freak out, terrifying. Absolutely. Yeah. And I, occasionally you'll talk to other course students and say, whoa, I had no idea this was all this stuff. Well, yeah, it's been there all along.
Yeah.
But we covered it over. And so, when we recognize how much we haven't joined in the mind with the Holy Spirit, with our inner kindness teacher, with Jesus, in the Course sense of the word, then we, it's a pretty desolate place there.
Right.
But then the oasis that awaits us on the other side of the special love, special hate relationships is just, it's what keeps, even just the shadows of glimpses of that is what keeps us going, because there's those little bursts of peace when we just, sometimes out of sheer exhaustion, but we just say, okay, there must be a better way. I could say peace instead of this, and I'm not upset for the reason I think. And then we drop the sword in our minds and say, oh yeah, okay, Holy Spirit, I'm willing to listen to your very persistent but very gentle commentary on all this, and see that maybe I made all this up.
Right. And I mean, that's a good point. It takes, I think part of the process of this is that it gets pretty horrifying, and we can be really hard on ourselves, but it is Jesus isn't judging us, and we don't, he is always gentle with us, and so we can use that as a model. But we're not. But the truth is, we're really usually pretty harsh with ourselves, and it takes a long time, again, of really kind of suspending our disbelief that this is leading us beyond something, because it can be pretty rough, for a while, when we really do see, and again, time. Jesus has a different view of time. He'll say at the beginning, but beginning can last a pretty long time. But because we are very resistant to it, and we're more afraid of the love than we are of the the sin, guilt, and fear. So we can wallow in the in the pain of this for quite some time, but eventually the pain becomes very motivating, and the contrast between those glimpses that you're talking about, that of really where we are, perhaps driven by pain to finally choose again, and we do have that shift to our right mind, where no one's guilty,
Yeah.
where we really have that experience, and versus what we're doing most of the time, and the increasing sensitivity to the misery of it
Exactly.
that we have.
Exactly. Yeah. Just being aware of that is, I think, so helpful,
Right.
and just noticing, because the part, it's not really the part, but the awareness within us that does the noticing is the part that is really the decision maker, isn't it? That says,
Right.
oh, wow, I
Right.
was in those moments when I wasn't at peace, choosing what A Course in Miracles calls the ego thought system, and that wasn't working for me. And
Right.
so, as you were sharing that, I was thinking, a few moments ago, you said something that kind of reminded me of the term that I learned in probably a college psych class, which is cognitive dissonance.
Right.
It's a kind of a fancy couple of words for just the ability of when we place side by side things that are starkly contrasting or different,
Opposing.
uh,
Right. Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, sometimes the choice is obvious. But when we equate things that are really, uh, different, and make different things that are really the same, we've kind of got everything inside out and backwards and upside down. And of course, Miracle suggests that we do that a lot, is that, anything on the level of form is really the same, but we make them into big important differences in the world of, if this happens or this doesn't happen. And
Right.
we exclude the only real difference, which is sort of an oxymoron, especially in Course terms, but is that, the only thing that really truly helps is to rise above the battlefield of the ego by taking the metaphoric hand of the Holy Spirit and saying, hey,
Right.
let's look at this together. And then
Right.
we don't have any reason from that vantage point to invest in what doesn't work, because the contrast is so great.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that the practice of this, the more we make it a habit, and really the purpose of our days, and sort of the organizing purpose of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
then eventually the judgment does begin to sort of slip away, of the
Yeah.
judgment of ourselves. And I mean, that's really the benefit of this. And that's been, very helpful too, to just have those moments where I am aware of how much I'm setting this up, I mean, really, like, how unkind I'm being. And I can see that, and without turning it on myself. The ego thought system is always one or the other. It's not like I regret it, like, as Ken said, it's or I think he made a distinction between remorse and regret,
Yep.
But it's not that I was afraid, and I wasn't even able to see it. So
Yes.
we know that we're letting more guilt go when we're able to see, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
In
It
my
really is a gift, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah. When
yeah,
we're have that pointed out to us, whether it's through the form of a relationship with someone else, or some
or just
others, or
observing
within
our
ourselves. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't mean that you're not the next day or moment also feeling the same reactivity. But
Right.
I don't take it. I mean, it really is a gradual process of not taking it as seriously, because you've had experience with it. This is going to pass. You're having an ego storm that's going to pass, and
Right.
really you don't need to side with it. It will just do its turbulence, and
Uh-huh.
your purpose remains sure, and the end remains sure. So
Exactly.
anyway, we probably should read through some of this, but yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay, before we do though,
Yeah.
but you said the word judgment, and somehow that triggered something that I've revisited a couple times in the last week, primarily in the context of I'm here helping with my two siblings. We take a month on
Right.
and 2 months off, kind of thing. So it's three of us, we didn't have rotation. And my mom recently had a minor stroke, and she's recovering nicely from it. But what it reminded me of is a wonderful video. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's a TED Talk by Jill Bolte Taylor called "My Stroke of Insight." And in this video, she talks about how basically essentially the ego faculty was suspended for her for a period of time, largely due to the left hemisphere being completely shut down.
Right.
And she had this profound epiphany, and tremendous peace, and really a sense of joining. a sense of there weren't any boundaries, and it was really a transpersonal, mystical, whatever you want to call it, experience for her, and it was pretty obvious in her account of this. And both times that I've watched this in the last week, when once sitting down with my sister and brother on either side of me on the couch and playing this video, it's like I just moved to tears. It's like how beautiful an experience. And it's one of those, kids, don't try this at home. You don't need to have a stroke to do this.
Right.
A Course in Miracles
We don't
suggests
need
if we
to,
just keep forgiving and
all appear
practicing
through all its circuitous roots, right?
exactly. If we can just keep forgiving and remembering to see peace instead of
right.
The ego's interpretation of things, and choose kindness and shared interest, and listen to Holy Spirit's translation instead of ego's and misinterpretation.
Right.
Eventually, we come out the other side of it with a pretty sustainable peace.
Right.
But like you say, it takes a tremendous amount of practice, doesn't it?
And a tremendous amount of focus on how we don't want to join. How we don't want to, how we want to keep everything separate. We really, really seeing our own, our own unkindness, as I was saying, our own unforgiveness and judgment and grievances, and need to feel victimized, and recognize that we're choosing to do this. And that's hard recognition, but it's part of the process. So, but really, just it's so simple and present. You just have to pay attention to right now. How am I feeling right now, and what am I attributing the cause of that to? And that it's that practice of continually raising to doubt the cause of what I'm placing the blame on, and recognizing that nobody outside me can take my peace away, that I must have chosen. We need to just make that such a habit that we just cut that false connection right as quickly as possible, and say, no, that's not the right connection. That's the way it looks, but that cannot be the cause. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to continue feeling, badly for a while, or upset or angry or anxious or whatever, but we can at least, remind ourselves that we must be wrong. Yeah. And really, with the perceptual temper tantrum can't last all that long when it's not being fed with the faith in it, Yeah. So,
and when you said the word wrong, I was thinking that's one of those loaded words in our vocabulary that the way the Course would define it would be simply an error that can be corrected.
A mistake. Right.
Yeah. Whereas the ego's misinterpretation is, this is an irreconcilable sin.
You're damned to hell, right? That's why it's one or the other. We can't,
exactly.
We always want to be right, because if we admit any weakness, within us, we feel that we're damned to hell. Right. We're not aware of that original idea, but we're aware of how defensive we are, and how, unable we really are to say we're sorry and mean it, or to really take responsibility for. All of us feel justified, we're trying to prove the same thing. I really do exist apart from God, but it's not my fault. And, that implies it's yours, right? It's got to be somebody's.
How did that sword get in my hand again?
Right.
The sword that's dividing my imagined self from the rest of the universe, and everybody in it. It's my quote-unquote enemy as egos, right?
Yeah, we're all the beleaguered, heroes and heroines of our own dream, right? So, but that's not true. We're the dreamers. So this section talks quite a bit about all of this.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the first paragraph?
Sure.
Okay.
So accepting the atonement for yourself means not to give support to someone's dream of sickness and death. So, really, it's not joining with someone else's ego attack, right? Which we usually do join immediately with the ego attack, right? And we counterattack.
Right.
We're just right in the battleground with them, right?
Exactly. It's the old cliche of, is this a private fight or can anyone join? And and as egos, we're
actually delighted when someone's having an ego attack.
Exactly. Yeah. We automatically volunteer to join in the fight.
Right. Exactly. So it means that, that he's talking about accepting the atonement for yourself. So which is the ultimate purpose of the Course, for each of us, for each part of the decision-making mind, is to, the atonement is the in the course is the principle that the separation never happened.
Exactly.
So, so accepting, learning that, awakening to the truth of that for yourself means, how we get there is to learn not to give support to someone's dream of sickness and of death, or our own dream, to begin to question the dream, to begin to question the cause of what's happening, because it's in the mind, it's not in the dream, right? So it means that you share not his wish to separate, so not joining with his ego, and let him turn illusions on himself. So you're not joining with his own self-destruction, right? Nor do you wish that they be turned instead on you, which for the ego, its thought system is one or the other. So again, it's just what we were saying, somebody's got to be guilty here. I can't be. If I'm wrong, then you're right, and that's unacceptable because I'm damned to hell.
Even politically, when the Cold War was over, it's like, oh, let's find an internal enemy now. Let's find.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've come a long way back to external enemies with that, haven't we? Anyway, thus they have no effects, and you are free of dreams of pain because you let him be. You let his decision-making mind be, unless you help him. So unless you free him from your need for him to be otherwise, right, you will suffer pain with him because that is your wish. We want to feel unfairly treated because, then you're the bad guy, right? He's doing the same thing. And you become a figure in his dream of pain as he in yours. And, we know in special relationships, we can get locked into this, arm wrestling match of guilt, right? Or however you want to ping pong ball or whatever it is, where we're just trading it back and forth, and we're locked. It feels like we're locked, in a prison with the other person, right?
As you were saying that, I was kind of reminded of some of those cartoons where you see, cartoon characters in this kind of swirling tornado when they get into real fracas, and then eventually one of them realizes, wait a minute, this is silly, and they jump out, and then the whirling is still going on, and then the other one recognizes, wait a minute, I don't have an adversary, and then it stops. So, but it only takes that one moment of recognition. That's like, it takes one of the participants to say, hey, I could choose peace instead of this.
Right. It's just all done at the level of the mind. It has nothing really to do with, it may translate at some point once you become right-minded into you saying something or doing something, but there wouldn't be any attachment to the other person. We wouldn't be trying to manipulate them into anything. It would just be flowing in a loving way. So, and we wouldn't really care about the outcome, because we would know that the outcome is sure, that nobody's guilty. It's all a charade, right? Unless you help him, you will suffer pain with him because this is your wish, and you become a figure in his dream of pain as he in yours. So do you and your brother both become illusions and without identity, without real identity, right? We've got those costumes on. We're playing these roles in the dream. You could be anyone or anything depending on whose evil dream you share, whose guilty dream you share. And that's what we think. We're the beleaguered figure of the dream. We're not the dreamer. The dream is dreaming me. It's happening to me. Right?
And damn slings and arrows of outrageous fortune again.
Right.
How'd those get there?
Exactly. You can be sure of just one thing, that you are evil. So you could substitute the word guilty. You share in dreams of fear, right? You believe that, we believe that we really did separate from God, and we have punishment coming. And so we're in a competition to try to exonerate ourselves, to portray ourselves as less guilty in God's eyes, because we believe God knows about this, and this whole thing is made up.
I can out victim you.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the unspoken language of the ego, isn't it?
Right. Right. And I mean, we think that that we want to be the victor, but we really want to be the victim, right? So, because that's the greater gain in the ego's territory, and we feel justified in retaliating once we're victimized, because I'm only striking back. The ego strikes back. Right?
Yeah. So that would be the ego's lesser joining is the idea that we can join in the level of commiseration, and but it's never really a joining. It's always like there's always a comparative element and a further separation in our minds
Right.
when we play the victim card or the victimizer card in our minds. Yeah.
Or when we play the card of trying to substitute, to find a substitute for the love that we believe we lack.
Right.
So usually in our special relationships, that often motivates the joining of them.
Mm-hmm.
The first joining, with the ego joining, of saying that, I'm not complete. And so I join with you, and you can give me what I want. And we as a unit will be able to, put our two bodies together and make a even bigger fence to keep love out, right?
It's the infatuation before the insinuation.
You're on a roll today, Bruce. So yeah, I mean, it's just that, that special relationship bargaining that we do to try to get our needs met. And of course, it's impossible. Nothing can substitute for the love of God. And nobody has what we're really looking for. None of us have it. We're all walking around with the same lack. So how could that ever work? Of course the other person is going to fail you. And that's when, the differences become so important, right, in the relationship, because, and all of the, the litany of betrayals and the reasons why, I can't be happy. You're the reason I can't love myself. I mean, that's what we're all saying to each other,
Good insight. Yeah, I mean, that's when you point it out that way, it's pretty blatant, isn't it? And I think that's the brilliance of the courses. It really does, pretty much on every page, point out.
Yeah, it doesn't mince words, really.
No, it points out how, and clarifies the insanity of the ego strategy to try to, make what is impossible work. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, the good news is it's always telling us, Jesus is always telling us, this isn't real what you're doing. It's a dream.
Exactly.
But why are you putting yourself through this torture? Can you see that this is hurting you?
Mm-hmm.
And also, that it's not, it can never work. You're seeking, I mean, and of course we can't seek for a long time. I mean, we need to look and look and look again with Jesus at our side to help us see, not with the body's eyes, but with the Jesus's Holy Spirit's vision that sees beyond the dream, that sees that it's really nothing, and that and also holds for us the awareness that we're still loved and loving, that we're still worthy of miracles, that we're still worthy of God's love, and nothing, there is no guilt. But we, that's why we develop trust in this through practice. It is a journey of trust, because we have to undo our tremendous fear of punishment, once we made the sin, quote unquote, of separation real in our mind, once we took it seriously, then everything that followed from there, is a defense, right? And is a further trying to root ourselves in a dream that we think is somehow going to save us. And so it takes a long time to slow that direction down and begin to reverse it, and that's practice of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
So patience is really a crucial element, and that's the example that our inner kindness teacher has, an infinite supply of.
Yes.
So if we can just remember to tune into that, then we can reapply that to ourselves and everyone that we meet.
Exactly. Do you want to read a little more?
Sure. There's a way of finding certainty right here and now. Refuse to be a part of fearful dreams, whatever form they take, for you will lose identity in them. A real identity, of course, it's never lost, but it seems to be lost when we identify with our silly, seemingly separate selves. You find yourself you find yourself by not accepting them as causing you and giving you effects. You stand apart from them, but not apart from him who dreams them. Thus you separate the dreamer from the dream and join in one, but let the other go. The dream is but illusion in the mind. And with the mind, you would unite, but never with the dream. It is the dream you fear and not the mind. You see them as the same because you think that you are but a dream. Merrily, merrily.
Right.
And what is real and what is but illusion in yourself, you do not know and cannot tell apart. And I think that's why we need our inner kindness teacher to guide us every step of the way, and to over generally a long period of time, develop
Right.
that gradually increasing trust in that awareness to guide us out of the quagmire of thinking that illusion A and illusion B are different. And certainly in a level of form, we need that discriminating faculty, like that Jill Bolte Taylor video reminded me. It's like, we've trained ourselves from birth and very rapidly how to distinguish between all kinds of things, and so that we can navigate in the world. And yet they're all artificial. They're all facades intended to keep us mindless.
Yep.
Not that we should stop doing all the things we do in the world, but if we can just kind of look with a real gentle inner smile at all the crazy strategies we have learned and implemented to keep the world with the world is with us so heavily at times.
Too much with us, isn't that word?
Too much with it, yeah. Wasn't that
Yeah.
Shakespeare? Yeah. And we've made such a big deal out of so many things, and they're all really the same. The illusion A really is the illusion B, and the only thing that's real is our greater joining, our real relationships that we have with everyone and everything.
Right.
That's based on the total innocence of our true being, which is beyond space and time and is spirit. So.
And it's not between bodies.
And no.
But we think, that in each of us, each fragment of the decision-making mind that seems to be having its own private dream, we think that the dream of me is all I have. That's what is so threatening about the Course.
Exactly.
Is that it threatens. That's the whole talk about the identity in that paragraph. Mm-hmm. We think that we will disappear. We think that this is all I have, so I have to protect it. I really did destroy love. Like, there's no going back. We're in a desperate situation. And so, we're fugitives now, and we have to somehow protect ourselves. And, so we fight for it, even though it's painful. We defend ourselves, to the death, literally, in the dream, because we think, and so it takes a lot of practice and consistent application of this to begin to really, get to develop that trust that we were talking about on this other part of our mind, and to, kind of withdraw sort of that wall that I was talking about in the beginning, to see that it really, it's just sort of crumbling because I didn't really need it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have to be, I don't have to keep doing this. And, but that we can only do that once we have some experience with the other, with that loving presence in our mind. If we don't, and we're growing in faith and trust in that, and it becomes less mechanical. And so very often we'll find ourselves just dropping our defensiveness in a relationship, which means we've just automatically joined with Jesus in the mind.
Beautifully stated.
That's going on. We don't have to fix what isn't broken. It doesn't seem to be broken, right?
Yeah. I like how you share that, because it really is. It seems like that parallel progression of undoing the ego strategy, which is basically some form of barrier or separation, and recognizing that the more we let down our mental defenses against true joining in the mind, simultaneously we truly are able to listen and relate to others more effectively on the level of form. But that really just becomes a kind of milestones or gateways or symbols of what's the real joining, which is joining with that awareness that we took with us into the dream, symbolized by the Holy Spirit.
Right. I mean, that Jesus is undoing the guilt for us. Mm-hmm. Through our just practicing this, through our constantly raising to doubt the cause of our, reactions,
mm-hmm.
and reminding ourselves that even if it really seems that it's because of this, what you did, or what just happened, or what I just heard, or what mm-hmm. my body is doing, or whatever it seems to be, but that constant just reminding ourselves that that can't be the cause. And I could still be peaceful now, and I want help with this.
Mm-hmm.
That practice is, every time we do that, we're letting go of a little more guilt that we weren't even aware of.
Exactly.
And so eventually that we don't need to be as defensive. We don't, our barriers begin to, the wall starts to, well, we just had the, 30th anniversary was it, of the Berlin Wall. But,
Mm-hmm.
so that's maybe a good metaphor for it, but it's just, that defensiveness just isn't really necessary anymore. What we built it for behind it isn't really, we begin to not need it.
Yeah.
And so, but it's still, until the very end, when all the guilt is gone, we will go back and forth. We're a split mind.
Yeah, so you just mentioning the wall kind of, I hadn't really thought of it this way, but the metaphor that's used in the Course a lot is putting things together on the altar, basically putting the thought system of the ego together with the thought system of the Holy Spirit. Well, the wall really is our resistance that we have to letting those two things be examined objectively together in our mind.
Right.
And the only way that we are going to allow that is to basically suspend the ego's insistence that we don't look at it, specifically with that inner kindness teacher. So when we take the ego's dark, ugly dream and put it on the Holy Spirit's altar with its close encounters, dazzling light, it vaporizes because there's no barrier between the light and the darkness in that moment in our minds. And in those lucid moments, it's like, oh yeah, that was nothing. And I think when we look back at any challenge that we've overcome in our lives, and objectively, we see in retrospect that wasn't such a big deal. But leading up to it, we
Oh yeah.
our hills and fuss and fight and fret about so many different things, and then when it was all over, I was like, well, that wasn't such a big deal. But it's only in that hindsight that I think a lot of times we realize we didn't need to provide so much fuss.
Right.
Yeah.
And this section talks about that gap, which is the separation, and for quite a couple of chapters there, Jesus uses the term gap and to the separation, or that, instant in which we took the tiny mad idea seriously. And it seems that everything, we have now this entire world, right, of separation and these bodies and this, but it's really nothing more than this little, gap. And right now, when I change my mind in the holy instant, in the present, forgiveness is now, forgiveness that it doesn't exist now. The separation cannot exist in the present. And so right now, that's why the more present we can be with this practice, right now, which teacher am I choosing? Right now, where am I placing blame? Right now, is that true? Can that be right? Can that be true? Because the Course says there's no one out there. So how could that be true? Whatever it takes to get you, Ken recommended, and I think brilliantly so, that the in its simplest terms, forgiveness is lesson 5. I'm not upset for the reason I think. And that brings you right back to, when you're feeling reactive, when you feel attacked, when you're feeling angry, and anxious and depressed, or whatever it is, to just say, yes, I feel this way, and not deny what you're feeling ever, because that's not helpful. But it's not for the reason I think. It can't be what I'm attributing it to. And then then stop. You don't have to think because it's like, because of the, go back to all of the, try to talk yourself into it, to just stop with that. And then the next step is lesson 34. I could see peace instead of this. I don't see peace right now, but I could, because really this doesn't have the power to take my peace away. And then just, Holy Spirit, help me. Let me look at this with you, that's all we have to do. That the rest, the returning to the right mind is that's taken care of for us. We don't have to try to then figure out where it is, or muscle our way through it, or fight ourselves if we're not feeling better, but to just kind of remind ourselves, well, I'm wrong. This must be because I'm afraid. It must be because I've chosen the ego, and I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't afraid. I wouldn't be defensive if I wasn't thinking that I was guilty.
Yeah.
This is my guilt. And that's, but and it really doesn't have a cause. So that's so liberating, really. Ultimately,
It really is, isn't
you
it?
know?
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
realize that there really is no foundation for
For
the
guilt at
ego's
all.
for
Yeah.
ego's unconscious guilt, but it's totally unfounded. That's why I always like to, whenever I hear the word guilt, I immediately now take two words, two adjectives, modifying that, and put unconscious, unfounded in front of it, because it's like unconscious, unfounded guilt. Well, that kind of,
Right.
it says here's how it got here, and here's how you get out of it, because it's unfounded,
Right.
and we have to, but we have, like you say, we can't skip over steps. We
Exactly.
can't gloss over what we're thinking and feeling. We just have to look at it, but with the Holy Spirit, and then the Close Encounters light says,
Right.
okay, you've let me in, so now I can vaporize this big
It just
black.
kind of dissolves at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Maybe not immediately, but
yeah,
at some
yeah,
point
exactly,
it will
exactly,
dissolve.
right.
You know, and there'll be some awareness, especially if it's involved another person, that it wasn't, that I'm okay and they're okay. I mean, that it didn't really have the power that I thought it had,
Yeah.
and we really are the same.
Yes.
We really have the same interest to try to find our way home.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll kind of just know that from the inside out. It will be a relief.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and it
So,
oftentimes does lead, almost immediately to a more inclusive thinking, where
yeah,
we don't see someone else's interests as separate from our own.
exactly. Yep. So we've been talking a long time, but maybe read another paragraph or two, and then
Yeah, exactly.
okay. He says, like you, your brother thinks he is a dream. So he's only, he thinks he is the hero of his own dream, right? And that's all he has, as we were saying. Share not in his illusion of himself, for your identity, for learning your own identity, depends on his reality and what you learn about his reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus formula, that's, we have to see the face of Christ in our brother first to experience it in ourselves, the innocence in ourselves. And the
Exactly.
face of Christ is just the term for innocence, but yeah.
Yeah, I love how Gary Renard's teachers put it, seeing all of spirit in everyone. If we can remember to do that once in a while,
Right.
and then it kind of builds, Yeah, but yes,
Yeah.
it's really seeing that the unconditional innocence that really exists in everyone,
Right.
no matter what the circumstances are.
That's right. No matter how it looks. And I mean, we all know that bodies, we all act out in pretty vicious ways. And that too, that they are different, that there's a hierarchy. That's part of the process too, that we're dissolving, that we're collapsing through this, to begin to see, no, it's one or the other. If I've chosen the ego as my teacher, all of my relationships will be tainted with guilt, and all of my thoughts will be tainted with guilt. And if I could get away with murder, I would. I mean, some of us are braver than others to actually try to commit it in form.
Yeah,
But we're murdering each other all the time in the mind.
exactly. And I think that harkens to what we were sharing earlier in our conversation today, is that, if we start looking at the depth of our hatred as egos,
Right?
and the lengths to which it will go, it can get pretty scary, because that's,
Yeah.
it's a pretty deep abyss.
Yeah.
But it's a dream abyss. It's
Not real. It's not
an
necessary.
enormous high production value illusion, but it's an
Right.
illusion. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, and I mean, we're not making this up. I mean, Jesus did say to Helen, you have no idea of your hatred for each other, to Helen and Bill, and that, I can't remember the exact quote from the
That's what I was remembering too. Yeah, exactly.
but it did make its way, I mean, that's all over the course, Jesus tells us, we want to hurl our brother off the precipice. And that's one of my favorite lines. So, I mean, because again, we think this is all we have. That's how desperate we feel. That's
exactly.
how frightened we are, But we're children.
As egos, what?
Children. We're just acting out in these silly costumes. I mean, we're not even an adult theater company.
Right. I like that. Yes, it's
just,
kids theater for sure.
We're
Juvenile theater.
in a preschool, going into the dress-up box, right? So
I
anyway.
really like that one, Susan.
Well, he
Not
doesn't
even
ever
adult
refer to
humor.
us as more than children, Bruce.
Exactly,
Usually
exactly.
it's
Oh, I know, I
infants and
know.
toddlers.
Exactly.
So there is a way of finding certainty right here and now. Refuse to be a part of fearful dreams, whatever form they take, for you will lose identity in them. You find yourself by not accepting them as causing you pain, you could say, right? And giving you effects, giving you pain and misery. You are not, the cause. And so it's just really raising that to doubt. Maybe I'm wrong that you're the reason that I'm upset, because I do believe the course, and this is my purpose and my path, and so I must be wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
You stand apart from them, but not apart from him who dreams them. Oh, we already read this one. I went backwards.
That's okay.
So sorry.
It bears repeating.
Yeah,
Inevitably, whenever I reread this, oh yeah, that I need to hear that
right.
again.
Well, I'll move into the next one again.
Okay.
Like you, your brother thinks he is a dream. Share not in his illusion of himself, for your identity depends on his reality. Think rather of him as a mind, as a decision-making mind, in which illusions still persist, but as a mind, a decision-making mind, which brother is to you. We all have the same equipment at the level of the mind, right? We all have the power of the decision-making mind to choose the ego, or Jesus as our teacher, to change its mind. He is not brother made by what he dreams, nor is his body hero of the dream your brother. So we're not brothers we're not joined here in the dream as bodies. It is his reality that is your brother, as is yours to him. We're part of the one child of God. We're the same. And we're part of the same, on this level, we're fragments of the same decision-making mind that has that power to choose again and learn, right? And find our way home. Your mind and his are joined in brotherhood, his body and his dreams, but seem to make a little gap where yours have joined with his. And that's that term for separation we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to read one more paragraph and maybe we'll.
Oh, sure. So the fourth paragraph is, and yet between your minds there is no gap. To join his dreams is thus to meet him not, because his dreams would separate from you. Therefore, release him merely by your claim on brotherhood and not on dreams of fear. Let him acknowledge who he is by not supporting his illusions by your faith. For if you do, you will have faith in yours. With faith in yours, he will not be released, and you are kept in bondage to his dreams. And dreams of fear will haunt the little gap, inhabited but by illusions which you have supported in your brother's mind. So once again, he's saying, just, watch when we want to, agree in a, truly not compassionate way, but in a commiserating way with the limitations that we see, which are really just our own projections. And then once we've said, well, that's got to be the real deal,
Right.
meaning, the seeming limitations that we find in the world and our judgments about them. I'm remembering a quote from Richard Bach's illusions book, argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. I mean, within the dream, once we establish that we have a problem because of our belief in separation, that's all it is, then, for to all extents and purposes, we appear to have that problem until we choose another teacher. But it's only because we've chosen the wrong teacher that it seems to persist.
And the problem, the form of whatever's going on in our lives, the next instant is still there. But it's not, when we say we see it differently, we interpret it. We don't consider ourselves victims of it. We don't feel victimized by it.
Exactly.
So, we will go ahead and do whatever we have to do, but the urgency, the terror, the feeling unfairly treated, why can't I catch a break? All of those stories that we tell ourselves, that just kind of drops away. And it's like, oh, that's what's in my dream today. My bodies have, as, as long as we're in the dream, we're going to have, bad things happen to bodies. There's
Yeah.
problems, there's challenges,
Yeah.
that's the way we set it up, but we don't take it personally. We don't, and we're not identified with really the outcome, because we know at some level, when we're in our right mind, that we're safe regardless,
Yeah.
that we're healed and whole and complete regardless, and we're not
Exactly.
broken. There's wonderful section. People might want to read this because we're really going on a long time here, but there's a few more paragraphs later in this section. He talks about the Holy Spirit putting the broken pieces of the sonship back together for us. And we all think we're broken pieces of that explosion that happened when we separated from God. The big bang of our sin, our crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
It caused us all to be, hurled out of heaven, and then to come up with this, to dream a different reality. But in truth, we're really one beautiful whole. And so, this is how we get back to the awareness that that we're whole, that we deserve to heal our split mind, that our mind in fact is whole, and is not these three, pieces that it seems to be now, that, that we work with as long as we need them, and then they just disappear into the nothingness from which they sprang, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, a few moments ago, I'll keep this really short, but what you were sharing reminded me of an experience I had a few days ago where, I found myself, shall we say, cornered by someone who had a different perspective on things, and
Uh-huh.
my first reaction was, "Oh, I'm being victimized," and then I caught myself very quickly this time, and it's been a recurring kind of a thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Wait a minute, this is my call for love."
Absolutely.
And within a few seconds, it was like I was
Yeah.
sort of nodding politely, sharing what I could that I felt appropriate, that wasn't a defensive response, but just, an acknowledgement that really was, to the best that I could, recognizing the sameness and the shared interest.
Right.
And it was a very different experience.
Yes.
And I left, instead of being drained, I felt very peaceful. And I was like, okay, so there's an experience of my call for love
Right.
expressed through this other person. And it was just, oh, that
So it's
wasn't
nice
that
when we don't,
difficult.
yeah, I mean, and you saw it and you immediately answered it, it sounds like.
Well,
So,
it took a few seconds, but
yeah,
but at
I mean,
least this
that's
time it
pretty
wasn't a
quick.
few hours.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the problem is we usually see it as the other, or especially at the beginning of our work with the Course, is we
Mm-hmm.
usually see it as the other person's call for love.
Right, right.
There's never any other person's call for love,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
right? And so, it's always only my own mind in need of healing that I'm seeing outside me, whatever
Yeah,
seems to be happening with somebody else.
right.
So, but yeah, that's beautiful when we can just, that's similar, I think, to what I was saying at the beginning of this talk, about that different shift in joining, where, just really seeing this is really just about my own joining with
Mm-hmm,
within
mm-hmm.
the mind in which teacher I've chosen. It really doesn't have anything to do with them.
Yeah.
And for such a long time, I've been thinking that it's had everything to do with them. And, I mean, I'm happily wrong, right? And so yeah, we answer our call for love. I mean, the ego survives in concealment, and we don't know that we've chosen it until we have an experience like that, where we think it's in the other person, and then we see we were wrong.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then we can let more guilt go,
Yeah.
which is really kind of not even is done automatically for us.
We just have to be willing to let the Holy Spirit drag our
Get
darkness out onto the altar,
Yep.
of the mind. Yeah.
To just stop there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I think we should stop here.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you again, Susan. I always enjoy our
Good.
conversations because it reminds me of things that I find great peace in practicing when I practice them, and encourages me to do more of the same. So
For me too. So, yeah.
Okay. Well,
All right.
looking forward to our next conversation. You can always find Susan's wonderful writings on her blog, which is foraysinforgiveness.com. And I have similar musings on ACIMblog.com. And I'll post our videos from today on both of those websites. So
Okay.
until next time, have a great forgiveness classroom and look forward to the next conversation.
Okay. Hopefully around the holidays. All right. Take care.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.